Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today it's all about Sky Sports Fantasy Football and there is £50,000 up for grabs for the winner. My name is Joe and joining me ahead of Gameweek 25's fixtures is Luke. Luke, how are you?
I'm alright, Joe. I'm not too bad. Fairly average week for me in the end, but mainly with some captain fails, which I think quite a lot of people had over these last few days. Outside Bruno Fernandes as usual, if you went for him. And all good. Looking forward to continuing to spend transfers when I don't actually want to, which has been the theme of my team since Oval.
Well, we'll look at my team as well. I've spent a couple of transfers and they haven't worked out, but I'm hoping they will down the line through some kind of weird knock-on effect. But yeah, I got 101 points, which I thought was okay, but obviously compared to others, I think 120 would have seen a decent enough green arrow, if such things exist in Sky. But yeah, I'm still hovering around the 900 mark, still in the top thousands, not really budging. Differentials are going to be needed if we're going to move. I'm going to need to be a bit different with the captaincy. For example, those that captained or owned Dallas instead of Bamford would have had quite a hefty markup there over the week for that Southampton game. There are gains to be made. I'm not making them at the moment.
Yeah, it's tough. The overhaul has obviously forced very, very template teams. As a result, everyone's quite static.
I hate this overhaul. Because of what you were saying. I think I don't know whether the tech is designed enough to have, like in FPL, a wild card at any time you want, because that would mix it up a bit. But everyone has moved to the same team. I guess what I should have done is move to a completely different team.
Well, this is the thing when in a static price game, and we've obviously got all the fixtures, well, not all the fixtures, but a lot of the fixtures out in front of us, so we've all got the same information. It's only going to lead one way, isn't it, where teams are going to be very similar. And having worked with Sky in the past, I know that they stuck in this second overhaul basically to try and get players to re-engage with the game, because obviously when you have a limited transfer game and a lot of people spank them early doors, they've then got no reason to log in, have they? So you're kind of giving them a free chance to get back into it, I guess, and reconstruct your team. But all it really leads to is the template teams, like you say. They will start to differentiate. Injuries and stuff have already started to happen, so they'll break away. But for now, it's extremely tough to make any moves.
Yeah, it's also, it's tough for you and I because we do a video and a podcast about Sky. So not to say that we are, in a position to influence the template, but some people will look at that and go, well, look, if they're getting so and so in, we should do that as well. And
we're part of the problem. That's what you're saying, Joe.
We're part of the problem. So we should either lie or do something else. But I can't quite bring myself to lie about my team. So what I say is what I do. Okay, let's have a look at some of those tier 2 and man of the match stars from the game week that's just passed. Man of the match, Diaz, underlying his potential at City for broad spread of points. Jesse Lingard at West Ham. Now we're talking about differentials. Those have got Jesse Lingard in. Well done so far. Harvey Barnes, another differential at Leicester and a great option. Davies at Everton, so an Everton option there. Neto, Wolves fixtures not yet, but they do get better towards the end of the season, so keep that in mind. And Rafinha, who you got in for your team. Passing tier 2, Azpilicueta, Maguire, Dunk, Rudiger, Alexander-Arnold, Dan Burn, interesting. Zinchenko again getting the points. White, Brighton. So a lot of Brighton players. Pascal Gross as well. I was tempted by Pascal Gross, but I knew it would only be really for the passing tiers because he's playing in a slightly more withdrawn role. He started his Brighton career in quite an attacking midfield role, and he's kind of moved back now. But yeah, definitely the potential there for passing tier. Højbjerg and Diaz again. Tackles tier 2, Dallas, underlining Dallas's potential. Castagna, Davies at Everton. So I mention that again because these are players that people aren't really thinking of. But nevertheless, there's Davis there with a man of the match and a tackles tier 2. So something to monitor when we perhaps want Everton. Rodriguez at Everton too. Saves tier 2. Meslier, he got that twice in that game week.
Since I ditched him, cheers.
Pickford, Martinez, Patricio. Once again, Wolves pictures get better. I've been burnt with Patricio before. I may well go back at some point. Who knows? De Gea, Pickford, Martinez there. And shots tier 2, only a couple. Well, 2 or 3. But the ones that sprung out to me is Pereira, if we're looking the West Brom one, if we're looking for a differential. And St Maximin. Newcastle have a single game week, a single match day coming up on the horizon. And St Maximum is a differential to consider. But yeah, any of those names, I've just drawn out some of the more interesting ones, but anything spring to mind?
I think the usual ones we've been mentioning quite a lot recently, the ones that are consistently there. So Lingard has basically been ever present since he's moved in some way, shape or form, in some sort of award or goal or assist, and he just looks great. So at the moment there's quite a dearth of midfield options, as we know, so he's not to be sniffed at. He's just performing so well. Barnes obviously stands out heavily. I know Leicester, he's been fantastic of late, and then Leicester have obviously got a good run coming up. He's just a great differential, really. He's hardly owned in the top 1k at all. He's definitely one that I'm monitoring. And you already mentioned Neto as well. Again, at some point, Wolves fixtures do change, and we'll probably get some individual days. Obviously, we don't know about them yet, but later on. And I'd like Neto for his final run-in, because although I generally don't like these kind of midfielders who don't get passing bonus and stuff like that very often, because obviously they can hit 2 points quite regularly, he just seems to be one of these guys who's always finds a way, be it one assist, a man of the match, whatever. He always seems to pick up something. So I do like him. And I suppose Rodriguez is another name who was very popular at the start. The fact he's getting the odd tackle bonus, and he can get shots on target bonus, like he is potentially, I mentioned him because a lot of people are probably going to go to Calvert-Lewin because of the way the fixtures have fallen. But then a lot of people might not have a striker slot for available, so then Rodriguez kind of solves that, and he has been a bit of a letdown. It's definitely a punt, especially with his injury record, but he's the kind of differential we talked about on a couple of pods before, where everyone's going Calvert-Lewin. If you want to make some headway, then there's Rodriguez, then perhaps he can outscore him. It's not like he's incapable of it. He's obviously a very good player.
Okay, let's have a look at your team. So obviously there's been some movement, because this time last week you had Grealish in your side, so you bit of forward planning, all those Villa fixtures, and then Grealish promptly gets himself injured. That of course came out via the wonderful, I think it was Insider FPL. They monitor the accounts of players and people at teams. It actually comes out after the FPL deadline, but before our deadlines in Sky, so it's actually brilliant, because all the physio. Why would all the Villa physios and teammates get rid of Jack Grealish? Do they say that it's obvious he's going to be injured? So very handy. Yeah,
I didn't actually do it on that day though. I pretty much knew that he was going to be injured. And I could have made the move pre that game. I even knew on the Friday, so I was thinking about just putting Rafinha straight in because Leeds were playing Wolves, and obviously Leeds had 2 games, so I thought that makes sense. But at that time, we didn't really know the extent of the injury, and I still don't think we do 100%. No. So I was thinking, well, maybe it could just be a 1 game, and then there was even talk that he might be back for the Leeds game, which he obviously wasn't, and then these things can drag on. So I did do it eventually on the Tuesday. I would have, obviously, if I'd done it on the Friday, gained an extra, I think 2, maybe 4 points, because Rafinha might, let me just check that actually. Oh yeah, no, it was only 2 points. So I'm 2 points down, but I let that go to get a little bit more information, so I'm not too bothered about that. The reason I really did it was more, again, for a little bit of long-term planning. Obviously, I'm going to want some Villa at some point. I hate holding players when you don't know when they're due to come back in the hope they're going to come back, because it just ends up dragging on so often.
And in Sky, you could miss so much, so many days.
100%. And Rafinha he's just been incredible. So what's really annoying for me, and I suppose a lot of people have done it, is on my overhaul, I did have many drafts where I had Rafinha instead of Bamford and used that slot as the rotatable striker slot to use my transfers. And I just... In the end, I thought, look, everyone's going to be on Bamford as captain instead. And I played a bit sheepish and thought, I'll have Bamford and I'll stick Grealish in, and it's that long term. In the end, it's ended up costing me more transfers, because obviously Grealish has got injured. I've had to make the transfer anyway. And I kind of regret that. So I think we had a question last week about regrets on overhaul. And my regret is really not to have not to have decided to go with Rafinha over Bamford and then use Bamford as the rotatable striker slot. Now, it's easy to say in hindsight, but I did really consider it, and it was more the ownership of Bamford as a captain that pushed me towards keeping that side of it. At the end of the day, Bamford did well and scored as well, and I captained him over Rafinha again because I thought he'd be the most heavily favoured captain. Which I think there was only about a point difference in the end between them, so that wasn't a problem. Another transfer used. Bamford is now my rotatable striker slot, though, and he will be going probably for Calvert-Lewin.
That's really wise, because Everton have a single match day coming up soon, and obviously they've got fixtures to be rescheduled down the line.
They've got some good. They've just got some good games in general, really. So. And then hopefully I'll just continue. The plan is that my team, apart from that, will stay the same, and I'll use my very limited swaps to just rotate that forward slot to anyone I need for an individual.
That's probably very wise advice for those with limited transfers. But we've all got limited transfers in a way because it's a limited transfer game. But just for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, you've got Ederson in goal, Stones, Cancelo, Diaz, and Vestergaard. Then in the middle, Gundogan, Fernandes, Rafinha, Kane, Salah and Bamford. And as you said, you're going to use that Bamford slot to sort of revolve around. And that could be quite lucrative. I think Newcastle have a single match day.
They do,
Are you tempted by Wilson in that rotatable?
Well, I don't know what is in. I think we've got a question. Let's leave it for the question.
Yeah, we'll leave it up
I think
for later,
we've got a question. Yeah, but that is the plan. Obviously, things can change, like they already have numerous times. If there's suddenly an injury to Bruno Fernandes or Gundogan or anything like that, then obviously it all goes out the window. But for now, the plan is to use that slot and just hope that the rest of the guys continue to perform season long, which they could do, but you never know, do you?
So let's put my team up now, a bit different. So that's good that it's different. It's good that there are differences emerging.
It's not that different though, is it? There's only a few names.
There's a basics. I've made it slightly different. the difference is what is going to be, is where it's going to be different, because I'm having enough of Vestergaard, and there's some days when I want to captain a Southampton player and I don't feel confident at the moment with Vestergaard. I know he's close. He always looks close to scoring, looks close to getting those tiers, but I wanted to try something different. So I got Jorginho out after he was benched, and got Ward-Prowse instead. So Ward-Prowse is now you've got Bamford in that rotatable role. It's a midfielder for me. So I've got Ward-Prowse in a sort of, he could become perhaps Harvey Barnes, he could become Neto, it's that sort of role. Meanwhile, I might want to get rid of Vestergaard and move Vestergaard to another midfielder, possibly for those other players I mentioned, or perhaps another defender. So I didn't want to go 5 at the back, so I decided to get Sanchez in instead of Ederson. So I got rid of Ederson for Sanchez because I'm quite stocked up on City. Every time City play, I'm already up, and then it's the other players where I start falling down the rankings. So I sort of go up to about 700-800 in the rankings when City play, and then I slip down to about where I am at the moment, about 900 when they don't play. That's just the way it's going at the moment. So I'm trying to even that up a bit. And City's fixtures, they're still obviously great for investment, and I want to keep Stones, Cancelo and Diaz. So I've got Sanchez in goal, Vestergaard, Stones, Cancelo, Diaz. Ward-Prowse is now my Southampton guy I prefer. Gundogan, Fernandes. I've got Salah, Sterling and Bamford up front. And my plan is to move Sterling to Kane after the City match. Also, we get to see the lineup. So who my captain will be, we'll come to captains in a bit, will be whoever's playing, because we'll find that out before. So Sterling may only get a few minutes in that game, but anyway, he's gonna. I'll give him that game, the West Ham one. Either he'll start or come on, and then the next day I'm going to shift him to Kane, because Kane looks pretty good for captaincy coming up. So that is a plan I'd already sort of penciled in. And I can do that. It's Villa I'm missing out on. They have a single match day coming up soon. And Everton are an issue for me down the line. So I'm keeping an open mind about that. But one thing I'm looking at, I think we were speaking about it in just before we came on air, is that there is in Gameweek 20, there's an interesting Villa hop-on point, which is Gameweek 20, where was it? 27, 26.
They play Sheffield United. Is that what?
That's
and
the
they
one.
also play home to Wolves the next week. So yeah, there's a couple of places you could move on. But that one in particular on Wednesday, the 3rd of March, we're away to Sheffield United.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the teams or Villa will have played on the Saturday anyway because it's obviously the double game
That's
week,
it.
and then some of the other teams may have already played. So obviously you could switch if you wanted to. The alternative is just obviously to switch at home to Wolves, which is also just a great point, just to jump on because it's a good game. You don't always need to grab the extra on, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So so that's something I'm looking at there. And so I'm looking because I think I have to keep Brighton. My Sanchez. One of the reasons I got Sanchez in is because I wanted to free up money, use it down the line. That gives me something a bit different because a lot of people have Edison, so I can use that money elsewhere. There's everyone's team costs the same, so I will have a difference there somewhere else. I don't know where, and I might not use it as wisely as having Edison, but I might do. So I can move that money, and if I'm going to go in for the Brighton defence, yes, I'll get the odd 2 or 3 points more with Dunk over Sanchez. And as it transpired this week, that was the case. But basically, if the Brighton defence does well, Sanchez will do well, and Lewis Dunk will do well. So broadly, it's not sky-winning stuff to go for Sanchez over Dunk or Dunk over Sanchez. That's just a sort of trimmings, and I think I prefer the extra money there.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's hitting a John Stones double goal or something, then it's probably going to be much of a muchness there. But on that note, I skipped Brighton this week, which obviously worked out fairly well. I mean, all the Brighton players got like 100+ passes, I think. Could easily have won that game on another day. It was a bit of a fluke, wasn't it, that two attempts by Palace went in. So I was expecting that to be a 20-point haul, and I got away with it. I think Dunk only got a 4 in the end. So it's worked out okay for now, but obviously they've got another individual day later on. They've still got some good games. But it's situations like that where, I've got lucky in that situation. But for me, the person that would have had to come out would have been John Stones. Or to be honest, I would have started with Dunk and then not had Stones in the team because that made more sense.
That's what I would have done. Should have done.
So at the moment, Dunk is I think he's about 8 or 9 points up on Stones, just because you would have captained him in that day, and then obviously he got a clean sheet in his first game after overhaul as well, where he got some bonus as well. So I'm about 8 points down, but then obviously I've got the transfer in hand, and I feel like from now moving forward, will Stones outscore Dunk season long? I'd like to think he will, including that individual match day. It's not certain, obviously. Depends on how many games he's played, but it's these kind of decisions that it's so hard. Sometimes we get so hooked on trying to cover every single match day, and when you break it down, season long, if you're going to stay with those players, I think it becomes a little bit harder. Sure, if you've got all the swaps, then you jump onto Dunk for 3 or 4, you get that nice run where he has outscored Stones and the like, and then you switch on to another player, that's fine. But when you've got limited transfers, I think sometimes you just have to break it down and think, well, there's got to be some days I miss, and this might be one of them. And in the end, I've got pretty lucky on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, up 2 points by getting Sanchez in against Edison, wholly promptly down as soon as Edison steps on the pitch.
But in your case, it gives you a lot of money, and there's still games to come, isn't there? So you can only judge it at the end of that, really.
It gives me. So I mean, looking again at, we'll look at captains in a minute for game week 25, but we were talking about that sort of hop on to Villa moment, but there's also hop for me. Because I've got this double Southampton and I don't have to worry about Brighton anymore. I've got this Vestergaard Ward-Prowse combination, which is not very successful at the moment. So I can remove one of them, and it'll probably be Vestergaard after they play Everton on the 1st of March, and then I can move him to a Villa player of my choice. So say Grealish is back, I'll have some Grealish, but if he's not back, I'll probably be looking at, say, Konsa or another defender. There is also a hop-on place there for Leicester. Now, if I wanted to get I do want to get Harvey Barnes in at some point, and there is a nice hop-on place there for Leicester. Leicester play Burnley then, and I've still got that Southampton coverage. I've utilised the timing of it, and that's what I'm thinking there. Going Midlands, moving up north into the Midlands.
Well, I think the Villa one's pretty. Villa have obviously got the extra games to be rescheduled. They've also playing the blank week at home to Spurs, where again, now we've all got Kane sat in our teams, but the other game on that day is West Ham home to Arsenal. Oh, well, I say we've all got Kane. A lot of us have got Kane.
Yeah.
But come that day, Kane could be injured, or something could have changed, and suddenly we need Villa as well. So I think if you're making any transfers now, obviously looking at Villa is ideal just because of the volume of games and the individual days that they can cover. The only problem is that Villa seem to be in a very poor form at the moment and their star player's injured. So it's kind of that catch-22 situation. It's like I'd like to have Ollie Watkins in by that time, probably Calvert-Lewin to Ollie Watkins, for example, but it's only penciled in because obviously so much can change, injury news. Villa looked pretty poor, even when Grealish was playing in the last few games beforehand, I thought. So, it's hard to know whether they'll come back into the form they will. And on that note, the person... Go on. I was just going to say Martinez is the one consistent factor throughout. No matter how bad they are, he's always good.
I was just going to say, whenever I read out those stats, who's getting the tier 2, it's always him. So you know you're going to get something there. I think I see them more as a defence team now, with Grealish out at the moment, and also I've had Grealish in the FPL format, and I wasn't hoping he was getting injured, but I was hoping there was something to remove him. I thought we might get a red card or something, hopefully, so that it wasn't injured. Just it could be the excuse to get rid of him because he's been really poorly performing. I think I've had 1 assist out of 3 or 4 weeks from him, which is not what you want for a player like that. So yeah, I'm thinking more defence for there. I haven't looked into. I'm going to look into a bit more about the potential for passing and tackling, etc. But that's the player I'm looking at.
These players who when they do nothing, they still get something. That is very much the key of Sky a lot of the time, and Martinez is definitely one of those. Yeah,
definitely. So let's have a look at these Sky 25 fixtures for Game Week 25. Lots of them. We've got 6 captaincy days. So moving down the list, we've got Man City against West Ham, West Brom against Brighton, Leeds against Villa, Newcastle against Wolves, all taking place on the Saturday. As I said before, we know the Man City lineup this day, so utilise it. I'm going to captain whichever defender's playing, probably. So we'll see who it is. I presume you'll be similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare treat to get to see the Man City team. Leeds versus Villa, you could look at Rafinha again maybe because he's been fantastic. Villa have been poor, as we just said. Yeah, it could work, but I feel when you get to see the lineup, you've got to take hold of that, and you'd expect they will get passing bonus as well, the defenders. West Ham could score, I think. I mean, they're capable. For me, I don't have any of their offensive assets apart from Gundogan. So if he's in the starting lineup, maybe I'll be tempted to go him. It worked the other day when I know he came off injured, but he got a brace, didn't he? And man of the match, etc. So clearly a good option still. I'll be as ever if Cancelo's in the lineup, I'll always be tempted. My only worry with him is he's just played 90 minutes and maybe he comes off early because that happens sometimes.
And Diaz played as well for the 90. So Stones could be. I have Sterling, and this could be his final hurrah. If he is in that squad, usually away from home, he scores well against West Ham. I can't recall off the top of my head any big hauls for Sterling at the Etihad against West Ham. But nevertheless, I think I might give it a go for Sterling, because
he's a differential, isn't he? So if you've got him, it's probably worth. I think he was pretty poor apparently, according to all accounts last night, but that doesn't really mean anything. No. He could be fine. I mean, if Diaz is in the starting lineup, Cancelo and Stones, if they're all in the lineup, it'll be tough to. I couldn't tell you who I'm going to go for right now. It'll probably end up being Diaz, just because Stones has been a little bit less on passes than Diaz of late.
And of
he's
course
been sitting even deeper.
We saw the Man of the Match awards. There's a bigger breath. You've got a kitten on you.
Yeah, he just climbed up my leg, and I tried not to wince while that was happening.
Ooch. Okay, well this is good. Okay, I'll go my eyes off the kitten. Okay, let's move on. Back to hop off. Oh no, yeah, there we go. And then on Sunday we got. So I'm going to be hopping off Sterling for Kane this day. So it's Crystal Palace, Fulham, Leicester against Arsenal, Tottenham against Burnley at home, and Chelsea against Manchester United. So for me, it's going to be Kane, and for you as well, I presume, and elsewhere.
I think Kane or Salah are the main. Well, obviously Bruno Fernandes, but when it's away to Chelsea, you feel like you can get away with that one.
I'm scrolling down the list. I missed out Sheffield United, Liverpool, because they're playing much later in the evening. So Salah is an option.
He is, isn't he? But Liverpool have been dreadful, so it's Spurs haven't been much better, and Burnley are tight. I don't know. Right now, it will be Kane. I think. I feel like just having the home game, the fact that he'll probably have a lot of shots. Burnley will hopefully sit deep, hopefully suit him a little bit. But it could easily be Salah come this day. I honestly don't know at the moment. I might just switch it around. But I think there's an argument to not have one of the two, because actually Spurs and Liverpool play on the same day for the next 3 weeks, I think. The next 3 games, sorry.
Yeah.
So I know you were saying about getting Kane in. If you actually look at it, Salah plays every time that Kane plays. But Kane, I think, is probably the better captain, you could argue, on all 3 of the occasions. So I think if you had to pick one, it would be Kane. And therefore, that's probably why I'll end up being my captain.
I'm going to go, even though I'm looking for differentials where I can, I'm going safe by having both. These will both be captained. Well, on those days that they're playing. They both could do well. We never know. Moving on to the Monday, just the one match, Everton Southampton. So for me, I'm looking at Ward-Prowse to be slightly different, and I do not fancy Southampton's clean sheet potential. So is this a day where you're thinking of Calvert-Lewin in for this? For
yeah, so originally I planned just to have Vestergaard in there in case this game went ahead, because it wasn't always certain it was going to stay on this day, and I thought, well, I'll be happy with that. And I may still do that. It just depends how the rest of the days go. But I feel like now, because Everton's games have been moved around a little bit, it makes sense for Calvert-Lewin, because then they just have a way to West Brom as well on Thursday, which that's a good game, isn't it? And Everton have looked a little bit better of late. And then Monday the 8th, they play away to Chelsea. And then there's a game after that for Man City where you could jump back to a Man City asset if you wanted to, or you could even swap. I think if you go the next, where is it? Sorry, the Newcastle game. So on Sunday the 7th of March, Newcastle play West Brom. So it's earlier in the game week. So what you could do is you can move to Calvert-Lewin for home to Southampton, Monday the 1st of March. Calvert-Lewin Thursday the 4th of March away to West Brom. So get those 2 games out of him. Then you could move him on because he plays away to Chelsea for a Newcastle player. So be that Wilson if he's back, or St Maximum. They play away to West Brom. They then have that individual day, Friday the 12th, home to Aston Villa. So that'll be a differential, I think, because a lot of people will probably be on a Villa player. So a bit of a differential there. And then they've got, they play in the blank day against Brighton away, who I don't have any Brighton assets whatsoever. Okay. So for me, it kind of makes sense where I'll be playing against the crowd who will be on Brighton. And if I get lucky on both those occasions, I could suddenly fly up against the masses. I could equally go down. But it's those kind of opportunities that I'm looking for. And we're running out of... I mean, all the games are sort of due to be rescheduled are done now, apart from 2, I think. So moving forward, we've only got those 2 extra ones to go in. And then there probably isn't going to be too many opportunities around... doubles and blanks and 3-for-1s and 4. There's probably not going to be many.
For those, I mean, you've got Rafinha as well, so Bamford can go. But for those with only Bamford, I mean, is Bamford to Calvert-Lewin, something that could be done? I mean, do we need Leeds?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do that. I think that's fine. Again, you could argue you don't need Calvert-Lewin, especially if you've got Southampton. You could even look at skipping it. It may not score in that game. I think that's fine too. Long term, I think I just like Leeds because they're so fun to have and they've got so many good assets. For example, you may not want to use up a power slot, like a forward or even a midfielder, you could argue. You could just have Dallas in there and he's shown what he can do. So you could do a little bit of a switcheroo, and if you haven't got Dallas already, maybe move out a Man City asset by then because they'll have played all their extra games for Dallas to free up money, or you can do Vestergaard to Dallas to cover that Leeds game because they're playing Fulham at home.
Yes, on the 19th of March, single match day.
Yeah, so I imagine that'll be quite a tough game because Fulham have been very tight of late. So you'd have thought maybe low scoring, Dallas playing in midfield, could get past his tackles, could maybe get a goal because he's popped up with so many. So he's still a decent option, I think.
I mean, it could involve a brilliance. So Rafinha could be the one there. So, obviously if it's a 1-0 to Leeds and it's some bit of Rafinha magic, then obviously that's man of the match with Beckham, you would imagine.
And they've got a really tough run. So after that game, they play away to Fulham, which I think you'd still want one for. And then they're home to Sheffield United, which I think you probably want one for as well. Then after that, they go on a 3-game run where they play away to Man City, home to Liverpool, home to Manchester United, which is a tough little 3 games.
Well, that's when in... so a lot of people play Sky and FPL. So in FPL, I'd already earmarked get rid of Leeds then. That's to get rid of Leeds time. in that format, and so we can bring that through with Sky as well, because the fixtures are the same. That is the time to start thinking about moving off Leeds. But yeah, as you said, you're going to want them perhaps up until then.
Yeah, and we don't know how the days fall at the moment because they've not been planned for TV yet. But it could work out that Leeds play Sheffield United and then Wolves play West Ham later in the game week. And to me, that's the kind of time where you probably want to look at moving to Neto or something like that, because then they've got a much better run.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Tuesday, 2nd of March, Man City against Wolves. Another day we get to see the City lineup. So that's whichever City player's playing.
Yeah. Indeed, it's too early to say now, isn't it? We've still got a game, still injuries and everything, but it will be a Man City player. And against Wolves, I mean, passing bonus is all but assured. It's pretty much assured in every game. But against them, I'll be stunned if they didn't get it. Yeah. So again, I'll probably be looking for one of the defenders.
So on Wednesday, the 3rd of March, this is my possible Villa time when I get a Villa player in. Burnley against Leicester, Sheffield United against Villa, and then Crystal Palace against Manchester United. Looks like a Fernandes captaincy day, I would presume.
Yes.
I'm not even going to go against crowd. I think there's one manager in the top 1,000 who hasn't got him.
Yeah.
So I'm not going against that. There's crowds and there's crowds, and that's too big a crowd.
Regardless of that, Palace, apart from their fluke result the other day, are just woeful, aren't they? So you'd expect that Bruno Fernandes can get points in any game. In that game, he could get an absolute monster.
Yeah, so I'm not going off him there, but it is definitely a Villa day for me. That's the day where I will be. Let's see it. Whichever Southampton player I dislike the most at that time goes for whichever Villa player I like, if I like any of them. And then moving on to the Thursday, Fulham against Tottenham, West Brom, Everton, Liverpool, Chelsea. So options, but for me, I look at that and sort of think, I think that's a Kane day as well. For you, it might be a Calvert-Lewin day.
Yeah, if I go there, I'm still not 100%, but it'll be Kane or Calvert-Lewin. Obviously, Salah's there as well. Great home record over the seasons. Can't rule him out, but given the way Liverpool have been playing and how tight Chelsea have gone, it might just be enough just to have him. So, yeah, it'll probably be Kane, but Calvert-Lewin will be a consideration. Yep.
Okay, let's move on to some community questions that we've got. So thanks everyone for responding. I put up a little note on Twitter today and quite a few of you responded, which is great. Ronan Fitz asked a question that we were asking last week and we're going to ask again a bit more earnest this week. Too soon for KDB? He could very well get a start against West Ham. And Man City still have strong fixtures and lots of fixtures. So are you tempted by KDB?
Definitely tempted, but for now I'm still gonna hold strong and just ignore him. I think I'm gonna wait until he probably punishes me, and then I'll probably think about getting him in. I'm just gonna hope that it never comes, or that my other players can cover it, because I just don't really have a plan. I'd have to drop one of Salah or Kane, and right now I don't really want to do that. Now it could be that Salah just continues to not perform. Kane has got those fantastic days where I'd want him as captain, so I wouldn't want to drop him. So if anyone, it will be Salah, and I'll just have to play that by ear, basically.
So with me, I've got a bit of money in the bank. I can't quite do Gundogan to him if I want to do my Sterling to Kane move. But apart from that, a lot of my players could be KDB if I went down that route. Not sure yet. What puts me slightly off Man City attackers and why I'm okay getting rid of Sterling is because something Guardiola's often said at the moment with the amount of games they've got, they're sort of at second gear a little bit. They're just not quite getting there because they're trying to conserve their energy. So if they're getting 1-0 up, that's it. So I feel we're going to see a lot of 1-2-0s for City, and makes that. I mean, why? And then you're taking the captaincy temptation is there with KDB, and then you take it off someone like Diaz who gets basically 12 points for showing up and getting a clean sheet. So
yeah, I feel like with KDB as well, earlier in the season Man City was struggling.
Yeah,
De Bruyne was playing almost up front and he was getting absolutely milked to death, basically. You can see him shattered. You can see, every time you look at De Bruyne, you know he's tired just by how rosy his cheeks are. And obviously eventually it's led to injuries where he's been so tired. Now he got benched. Obviously, he's coming back from injury, so you can't really read too much into that. But he's benched in the easier Champions League game. I think moving forward, the fact that Man City are now quite comfortable and doing well, compared to how bad they were previously, where they almost needed to have him on the pitch no matter what. I feel like if they're 1 or 2-0 up now and it gets to the 70th minute, I feel like Kevin De Bruyne will come off where previously he probably wouldn't have, because what's the point? They're going to need him for the running. He's the best player, and obviously. So for me, that is also a factor where I just feel like he won't see 90 minutes for quite a long time yet, if at all. And the other part is Aguero. If Aguero is back and suddenly fit and looking good, which I'm not crossing my fingers on, but if that happens, suddenly that changes De Bruyne again, and then De Bruyne maybe goes into a different position, and maybe Gundogan isn't as good as a result or whatnot. There's too many unknowns for me to go to De Bruyne right now. But in the future, with my 3 striker slot, potentially I could have enough money for De Bruyne even as well, alongside Salah and Kane. So that's the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, something to look at for the future. Tom Sky FF. Now this is a change that he knows he should have already have done, but nevertheless he's still asking because he still might do it. He says he wants to replace Grealish with Rafinha, which you did successfully a little while ago, to make budget for other moves. Yes, I know I'm a donut and I should have done it for that Southampton game. But he also knows that Barnes will probably be a bit more popular. But do you think Rafinha is still a viable, even though he's got less games in March? So should he still do it, or is that shit passed for him?
Yeah, that's a very tough one, because I think Rafinha is a great just hold, and his price is fantastic, and he covers that individual day on the blank as well. But they do have less games. Like I think it's like 3-1 for most teams now. Nearly every other team will play like 3 times before he plays. So the timing is definitely wrong. And again, it's going to come down to how many transfers he's got. I would maybe look to Barnes or someone else and then see if you can squeeze Rafinha in later for someone else, because you never know what will happen. Someone might get injured, someone might come back, and suddenly your plans will fall into your lap where you can do it. And I feel like if you plan a little bit too long term, it can sometimes hurt you. I'm a perfect example. Getting Grealish in when I knew that he had bad games and probably wouldn't outscore the majority of people, he then gets injured, so I had to spend the transfer anyway. So I would look to the immediacy, because as I already mentioned earlier, later on in the season we're not going to get a lot of games messed around with. So really your opportunities are still now, and I would want Rafinha, but maybe not yet. So I'd go Barnes and then maybe look to get Rafinha in for someone else.
Lee Williams asked, who is the best Villa asset for? They have a single game day, we think, coming up at some point.
Newcastle.
It's the Newcastle game. So who's the best?
They're going
to get another, you think?
They're going to get, I think it's Villa versus Everton, is it? Or something like that. There's another game to be rescheduled, which could come in anywhere, basically. So, a Villa asset is important. We've already discussed this quite a lot, and it's tricky to know who, especially with Grealish's injury not being...
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what Lee Williams is asking here. He's, who? Because he's gone off Grealish. I mean, Grealish isn't even playing, but...
Honestly, I only think Ollie Watkins or Martinez, and to be honest, Ollie Watkins without Grealish is maybe a worry as well. So for me, it's Martinez I mean, El Ghazi could work if Grealish is out for quite a while, because he's in on penalties as well.
So I mean, I'm thinking of a player like Konsa, but do you think I should perhaps just take a risk on a midfielder? You're just not interested in Konsa yourself?
No, I'm not interested, because he doesn't get the passing bonus. Right. You'd have to rely on him scoring a goal, basically, which... All right. Because at the moment, the clean sheets aren't even really there. And obviously, if there is a clean sheet, Martinez is outscoring you anyway. He gets 2 extra points for the clean sheet as it is. And he probably got saves as well.
So perhaps someone like El Ghazi or Traore even.
I like Traore. I think he's a forward in this game, though, if I remember rightly, which is really annoying.
How annoying is that?
I know, yeah. I'm pretty sure he is, because I looked at that a long time ago.
Okay, well, I might consider El Ghazi then.
Yeah, El Ghazi. I mean, it depends. It's all tied up to this Grealish injury. If they say he's out for 6 weeks or something, then El Ghazi's definitely an option. If he's not, and it's just, we could be back, then you're just not going to want to do it, because it's another transfer booked in. Okay. Ollie Watkins or Martinez, and I don't like anyone else, and I'm sorry, because I wish there was another answer.
Ryan asks, if Maddison is injured, would a straight swap to Barnes be worth doing? So he already has Maddison. Or could it make Barnes less effective if Maddison is out? So I did a bit of research for this one. And I had a look at the games where Maddison either didn't play or played less than 30 minutes, so it was a cameo. And those were in these match days for number 3, 4, 5, 7 and 16. So match days 3, 4, 5, 7 and 16 for Leicester. And of those, Barnes blanked in match day 3, 4 and 5. He got a goal in game week in match day 7, and then he got a goal in match day 16. What does that tell us? That tells us absolutely nothing. That does not... It's a small sample anyway, but even if you're looking at that for the complete 5 sample, if he scored a goal in every game, that does not mean he's going to score in the next games without Maddison there. If he blanked in all of them, it does not mean that he's going to blank in the next ones. So basically you've got 3 blanks, 2 goals. There's so many other variants could have come into that. Basically Barnes is still a good option with or without Maddison. That's what I think.
I agree. Barnes is a good option. Maddison is a good option. Will Leicester be a slightly less good team with one of their better players out? Probably. That happens for most people. But look at Man City without De Bruyne. They've been fine. It can be different, can't it? Obviously Villa lost Grealish and they look worse. They're unknowns, but in his own right, Barnes at least has those shots that he often falls back on if he doesn't get goals, and at the moment he's getting goals for fun. So I wouldn't overthink it. I would just get him in, I think.
One knock-on effect is it could raise the profile of Pereira and Castagna in our thoughts. Without that creativity of Maddison, then the onus could be on who is creative on the flanks, and it would be perhaps those two. Because in previous times where we've seen Maddison out, Castagna and Justin did really well. I mean, at the beginning of the season, Castagna was in a lot of teams. Justin was been in a lot of teams. So those 2 players benefited from Maddison being out just because their creativity is needed more. So they're options.
Yeah, I think Leicester just got great players across the pitch, and I think Maddison was injured in the first few weeks of the season. I think Leicester weren't particularly terrible as a result.
They were good,
I think they were
and as I said, those fullbacks were great. Phantom Mantle asks for a bit of forward planning. Are there any upcoming single game day traps or any single game day opportunities? I never thought I'd like the look of Newcastle. However, they play on a Sunday before 2 singles. So yeah.
And it's exactly what I mentioned before. On Sunday the 7th, they play away to West Brom, and then they play on the single day home to Villa, and then they play away to Brighton on the Saturday on the only day. So we've been here before. Newcastle had a very similar situation earlier in the season where they had like almost a 3-for-1 in the captaincy day, and not everyone, a lot of people got Wilson in, and he got injured in the first game within about 19 minutes. Yeah. In the end, he came back for the 3rd game, and I think he got a goal or a man of the match or a brace or something, and it ended up being like a decent option. Yeah. So the worst thing you could have done was bring him in and then actually take him out, because it would have cost you 2 transfers. You should have just left him in if you did that. You could look at it either way. I think if you've got the transfers, and I've said a lot of times now that there won't be too many more of these 3-for-1 opportunities, then I would probably chance that, because those 3 games are great, and 2 of them he can be captain from when no one else can be. So let's say they get 2 points in every single game. That's 10 points straight away, and he failed in all 3. So 10 points for a transfer. I think in the past people have said if you can get 10 points or above for a transfer, generally you've done okay. So for me, literally 4 as captain, and a 2 is 10 points, and that is the bare minimum you'd hope for that. So I kind of like that, I guess. I don't like that it's Newcastle, but I kind of like that.
If Wilson's still out though.
That's the issue, isn't it?
So Maximum is a player I mentioned, but it would be short term.
Yeah, I think for me it would be Wilson or probably Noah. I may be tempted to St Maximum if I was loaded on transfers. I won't be doing that, but if Wilson is out, St Maximum for a punt, and there's no one else I really like. I mean, there's Almeria and there's other people that can do okay. You could look at a defender, maybe they get clean sheets in that, but I wouldn't bank on the Newcastle clean sheet at all, I don't think. So, it may turn into a trap, and therefore, if Wilson's not there, I would probably avoid.
Pat Deavy asks, is Kane worth getting in?
Yes.
Yes. He's good, and he's captainable multiple days.
Well, I'll rephrase that. If he's got Salah, he doesn't need to go Kane because they're on the same day, and Salah could easily outscore Kane on all 3 days. It's not like he's not been known to outscore nearly every player in the game in his past history. So, no, you do not need him. However, I believe that I would very strongly suggest to get him, because most people will have him and as captain, and I think he'll do well above all that. So
Yeah.
that's the important thing.
For reasons unknown, he says, I don't have Salah or Mane. Who to bring in as cover for the Wolves v Liverpool day? So there are advantages of having a Liverpool player, clearly, with the fixtures. Doesn't have any at the moment. So, I mean, is Salah and Mane, or is it worth getting another in?
Again, he could avoid if he wanted to. You don't have to cover it the way Liverpool are playing.
Especially if you've got Kane.
Yeah, I mean, think of every Wolves game. It's nearly always 0-0 by half time. Probably get part. I mean, the defenders are obviously ravaged at the moment, but if there's any game where you'd expect they'll get passing bonus and have a chance for a clean sheet, it might be that game. So you could look at Kabak. I think he could do okay in that game. Okay. Robertson, Trent, they're fine as well. But the obvious answer is get Salah, because everyone will have him. He can get 2 penalties in the game, and he'll be captained by, I don't know, something like 60% of the top 1K, if not more. So the sensible play is just to get Salah.
Yeah. So that's the end of our questions. But thanks a lot, all those that asked there. You've certainly given me food for thought for my team, and reflecting on some of the errors that I've made and will continue to make. One of which at the moment will be ignoring Martinez for Villa. But you never know. I might correct that at some point. But with Grealish out, that's tricky, and we do have Everton players to think about, and there's Leeds as well, who are still trucking along, still being a good side to have. For those who want to get a bit more information about passing, tackling stats, those types of things, we've got those in the members area. Do have a look at that. That's all powered by Opta there. But in the meantime, Luke, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your game week in Sky.
Same to you, mate, and see you on the next one.